Real questions, real answers for real life. Come on in and pull up a chair. You're at 1850 Main Street with Michael DelGiorno and David Zanotti.
You get the family together for Thanksgiving and everybody wants to talk about who's going to win the presidential election. Can we even guess that outcome yet?
Second big issue that I was surrounded by at Thanksgiving with the family and relatives and friends. Everybody wants to talk about who's going to win the next election. And of course, they're talking about the presidency. Now, it's hard, man, when you've got all these people asking so many questions in so many directions. And because this is what we do. I mean, we've been doing this at the American Policy Roundtable for 43 years. You've been on talk radio for your whole career. I've been on radio for my whole career. We know a lot of stuff and they don't know it. So you want to try to figure out, like, how do you dispense the information without sounding like you're the only know-it-all in the room? And how do you ask them questions back and forth? And how do you engage? And it's like,
I'll do you one better. How do you even presume who the candidates will be? And what about the past speaks anything to what we're about to live?
and you understand their heart. And the first thing I want to say to them is, wow, if I could roll tape back and for everybody and help us all, two things I'd want to tell you. Number one, if it's Biden and Trump, you've got a one-term presidency. So within 24 months, whoever's sitting in the White House is going to have a half shelf life as a lame duck. So guess what? It's only 48 months. How can that be the biggest decision in the world? And then the next thing I want to say to them is, like, I could get to the bottom line real quick. I'll make you a deal. If I get to pick who controls the House and the Senate, you can pick whoever you want for president. Because with a one-term president, it only amplifies who controls Congress about 100 times more than normal. It's a big difference. It's always important. In this case, it's going to be all the more important. But I had to save that till the end of the conversation. And this conversation went a long time. And I mean, listening to everyone trying to figure out all the pieces and parts, and can Trump win? Is Biden going to be the nominee? I mean, the conversation was so long that I thought to myself, wow, if these folks only knew there's only about, like, what, Michael, 5 weeks, 5 or 6 weeks?
Not even yet for Iowa.
Yeah. But and within 120 days, this field is so short right now in regards to who the nominees are going to be, because it's basically going to be decided by March.
Well, I think there's going to be one. I've been banned from using cat analogies, so let me use a John F. Kennedy analogy. You haven't banned me yet on that. One of the things I loved about 13 Days, the movie with Kevin Costner, and it was an all-star cast, and maybe the best portrayal of Jack Kennedy was in that movie as well. But they used a lot of actual historic documents, meaning we have the notes from all of the meetings. So that wasn't a script as much as it was actors bringing to life.
You said so much right there. That's
yeah, no, it was powerful. And there's one moment where Kenny O'Donnell, because, well, you got to understand, in context, after Bay of Pigs, Kennedy didn't trust any of them. He didn't trust the CIA. He didn't trust the NSA. He didn't trust the FBI. He didn't trust the military and the Joint Chiefs. He had just fired CIA head, and who, by the way, would later go on and lead the investigation in the Warren Commission, which I thought was a strange person to choose. But anyway, but he had just fired the head of the CIA. He had already had his fight with the Joint Chiefs. He didn't trust anybody. So he's sitting there skeptical, and Kennedy's kicking some things around. And Kenny O'Donnell, his friend from Harvard, says to him, well, I got news for you. There is no wise man in the room. Hell, there's just us. All right. So because there wasn't a lot about the Cold War that informed them. I mean, Kennedy was very influenced by Guns of August, a book that he had been reading, and he assigned everybody in the cabinet mandatory reading of the Guns of August, because he wanted them to focus on how you can't anticipate. You can make one move and anticipate your way to world war. We got to be very careful. So that's where his mind was. But when Kenny O'Donnell just goes, hey, look, there is no wise man in the room. Hell, there's just us. That's how I feel about this election. I don't know how much about 2020 informs me for this election. I don't know how much of 2016 informs me of this election. I'll go one step further. This whole thing could seem over in 120 days, and then they pull a string and a bait and switch at the convention that gives us a 2024 for the ages. It could even include something I think would be good, the destruction of the two-party stranglehold. I don't know what 2020, I don't know what I would say to somebody if they walked up to me, other than I don't even know who the two candidates are going to be, let alone who's going to win.
Okay. So there's a big sense among a lot of people that it's got to be Trump. All right. I'm not sure. I can understand that. There's a sense of unsettled business that we're destined for a rematch. Okay. And what we're looking at, if the polls are real, and I'm not sure they are, because I think if I read the tea leaves correctly, and we pay close enough attention, I think that the Podesta-Soros connection, who are really going to run this election for the Democrat side, because they basically own and operate the Democrat networks, and they pay for them, they think that they can beat Trump. So I kind of think if the polls are showing a predisposition toward Trump, that those polls actually favor what Podesta and Soros want. So I'm not so sure that all the big numbers showing Trump's winning, that might be a little bit of push design there.
Yeah. In other words, secure Trump's victory, and it may look like he can beat Biden, but it ain't going to be Biden.
Yeah.
And then you switch it out, and it's too late for them to react.
It's like a prize fight. You're trying to decide whether you want to go against the number one contender, the number two contender, and you're kind of playing the game with Don King to manipulate the way the fights come down.
You think you're training for Frazier, and he gives you Foreman.
Yeah, because this is what, that's one question. But in any case, the Republicans have a very short field. They have an extremely short field. We right now are inside 6 weeks from the Iowa caucus. If Trump wins the Iowa caucus, it's over. So this whole thing gets shut down. And so all the speculation is like, oh, by the way, did you know it's going to be over in like 40 days? It'll be done, because if Trump wins Iowa, it's going to end a conversation.
But by the way, of all of the situations, that's the safest. That Donald Trump sitting at 62%, heading into a period of 120 days, you would need Nikki Haley, DeSantis. I don't even know if I can even throw in Christie anymore.
No,
I think he's as dead as Ramaswamy. But
we're down to a 3-person now.
Yeah, but those two one's got to get out of the way. There's got to be a knockout in either Iowa. I think Trump is the safest bet. But what I was going to say to you was, if I look at it through the lens of Podesta, I see, and the mainstream media and how they're behaving, keep everything looking like Trump can win. Keep everything look like Trump can win. Because you're going to get a double win. If he doesn't win, they'll go bonkers and claim election fraud again, maybe even do a real insurrection this time. And you could still put somebody else in that can beat him at the last second. But there is something about two guys that can't be anything other than a one-term lame duck, and America thinking that they've won something big if Trump wins. Because what's the only thing worse than doing nothing? Doing something that really achieves nothing but perceives as though you've done something.
Yeah.
It'd be so typical America to settle this between Trump and Biden, and you're still in debt. Your border's still open. You still got enemies, whether it's Islam, North Korea, China, Russia, all making gains on you. And you're no better off, but because you're focused on a presidency that doesn't matter nearly as much as the House or nearly as much as foreign policy, you'll think you won some big victory and you haven't won squat. And what they really have for you is 4 years from now.
And I think that's part of the mythical trap that the big players love to get us into, is that it's all settled with the presidency. Not only is it not settled with the presidency, the plumbing, the design, the wiring of the republic is such that the president never is the final arbiter of reality in our system. Not even in the declaration of war. Congress has got to affirm it. Congress is the one that's got to pay for it. I mean, Supreme Court justices, as important as the nominees are, Congress can stop them. We don't win this ever in one move, ever. But that's now what we're being baited into. Now, the Republicans, very short field. Could be over in January, will be over by March. Democrats have got a long field. Their convention's not till August. So what do you think of them letting Biden win the nomination, making it as genteel and as charming as they choose, and then switching Biden at the convention?
Well, they have all that time to watch things play out.
They had a long field.
Yeah. Can you imagine if I'm playing against somebody that's got to script the first 30 plays of a game, has to play flawless on special teams, defense, offense, can't have any turnovers, can't have stupid, foolish penalties. And all I got to do is one thing late in the fourth quarter. I mean, that's a lot more to prepare for.
That's the best illustration I've heard.
Yeah. So, what I see is hiding him isn't helping. Everybody's convinced about his age. Everybody's convinced about his cognitive ability. Everybody is finally getting in touch with his failed policies. They can't really articulate it. As you have said a million times, and I just want to echo this as a disclaimer, if most Americans were sitting around the Thanksgiving table, curious most about who's going to control the United States House of Representatives and the United States Senate, I'd feel a heck of a lot better.
Hallelujah.
But this is what they focus on. And the truth of the matter is they're not going to have any debates. They're not going to have any attention. They clearly must like Donald Trump winning, or they'd be reacting and responding, and they're not. So they want Trump. I've felt that all along. Yeah, I think you have a lot of time to see how people are going to react to Trump when it's a reality, because that can actually energize the Democrat vote, and that could get things closer again. I mean, I always felt like it's their first choice to win it with Biden and save any players, whether it's a Maryland governor or Gavin Newsom or what have you, for 4 years from now. If that's the case, if they can get there with Biden, I think there'll be stuff at the convention that removes Kamala Harris and maybe puts in place who they really want to take over for the next 8 years. I think that's coming. If it still looks like Trump's going to beat him, especially in the swing states, they're going to jettison this guy. Or he is, I am thoroughly convinced, one way or another, he's gone. They are not going to run him and lose. And that would be
to Trump.
That would happen at the convention. No, you know why? Because you've got to understand, in their minds, not so much Podesta and Soros, because they play at a much higher level. But for most Democrats and for most leftists, from the media to Hollywood and whatever, they really believe if Donald Trump is president, the world as we know it will end. Democracy will end. That when you get to the human, basic human nature of us, avoid pain, gain pleasure. That fear will drive them. They will run him off and they will insert somebody at the convention. And by that time, that will be the most energetic thing happening. Everything else will be old news.
When you subscribe to 1850 Main Street, you're the first to find out what's happening next with new guests, publications, and events. And when you spread the word about 1850 Main Street, you're helping others find real answers to the real questions facing America right now. To learn more, visit 1850mainstreet.com. And please, tell a friend.
Think about this on the movie script, and this is the play where these guys live. The Republicans have got their convention early. The Democrats are in August. So the Democrats have the opportunity of seeing the whole game plan in front of them and then responding from the position of the incumbency. All right? I mean, come on.
But even if it goes that way for the Republicans, do you really think that they're going to leave that convention united? Oh, they'll leave with Trump as the nominee, and there might be some excitement as to who he chooses as a running mate, but by and large, for at least 30 to 52% of the party, they're not behind Trump. So they leave divided. Democrats have been sitting watching all along. All they got to do is make one move late in the fourth quarter at the convention, and they got the upper hand.
Because all they plan to do is win. That's all they plan to do is win. All they plan to do is to control power. That's it. That's their whole game.
I guess it could be a play, too, to have you so focused on the presidential race, you're not watching your House of Representative and Senate race.
And I'm telling you, that's where the game's going to end up being played. Now, the last time around, 2020, this is interesting. If you take all of the people who voted for congressional races, and you just basically say, forget the candidates, forget the districts. Let's just take everybody who voted for a Republican to win the Congress and everyone who voted for a Democrat to win in Congress. Interestingly enough, there were more Republican votes cast than there were Democrat votes cast across the entire national composite. That would be, in a way, one of the purest public opinion polls you could have. How did you vote? And more people voted for Republicans in Congress than voted for Democrats in Congress. That's interesting. Now, the left will always give us that number when it comes to the presidential election and say, no matter what the Electoral College says, it's crystal clear that Democrats are underrepresented because they always win the popular vote and the Republicans don't. So we should have a Democrat president and we should eliminate the Electoral College. But when you flip it and it goes the other way in the Congress, you'll notice none of the big six media companies talk about that at all.
Right.
So there is a sense that Americans are still operating with some level of free agency in regards to trying to figure out how do we get the best government that we can for the country. There is still a legitimate contest going on. But if all the focus goes to the White House, then that leaves all the more room for Soros and Podesta and Wall Street and Hollywood and the social media companies and the big six media companies to plow all their dollars in when no one's looking at the congressional races and and get back their people in the House and the Senate.
Consequence and reality should be trumping any personalities, but they're not. Pardon the pun with Trump. I look back at, speaking of John F. Kennedy, as we did earlier, the Kennedy-Nixon race. History should remember wisely and honestly, not only that Kennedy was the conservative and Nixon was running as the progressive, but that they didn't have anything, they didn't have any differences. Even if you listen to that debate, they weren't that far off. I mean, you did have Nixon take a quick jab at his age. Everybody didn't want to be the one to do it out loud. Ramaswamy would have, but nobody back then wanted to say, you're a Catholic and you're going to be under the control of the Pope and not your Constitution. They would do that, but never in a debate setting. Nixon wouldn't dare go there, but that's the kind of stuff that was happening. The bottom line was they were the same. They didn't view the world differently. They didn't have a different worldview. They didn't have policy view differences. They both believed in less government. They both believed in less taxes. They both believed in the economy and capitalism. But this particular election cycle, whether it's the House, the Senate, or the presidency, what a clear, stark choice. They have nothing in common. One side stands for life, the other death. Open borders, secured borders. Debt and spending, stop the overspending, get the economy under control, and get people to work. Trusting you, not trusting you. Raise taxes, not taxes. And yet personalities is still driving it. So at what point do you just say spread, punt on center snap? These people just don't get it. Let's punt. By the way, the reason I still know that call, I can't name any other play. Well, I can do 21 dive, but I mean, because our team was so bad, we punted every series of downs. So I always remember spread, punt on center snap. Ready, break. But if there was ever a cycle, David, where personalities shouldn't matter, they should have the least matter. It should be this one, and yet that's all anybody's focused on.
The only way that I can hope to offer any advice or counsel or I keep my own self sane is to say, all right, the people who put America together anticipated we could be in this kind of cultic reality, disreality, unreality. And that's why we got a House and a Senate. And about the only way you can balance that scale is to try, I think, to continually beat the drum and say to people, for goodness sakes, everywhere you go. Well, it takes me to the end of the Thanksgiving conversation. I had to wait to the very end. After hours of all of the stuff going back and forth, I did my traditional close. Could I just happen to remind you that what's most important is who owns and operates your Congress?
One, I am grateful for my Thanksgiving over yours. We talked about Chef George's. I don't know how you make a turkey that moist. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how he did
the same turkey
that
with
flavorful.
us, man. It was outstanding.
I have two daughters, and I'm so grateful for Belmont University and what it means to them. And our heart breaks for one Belmont student from New Jersey who lived in my kid's dorm, who was his family is having a much different Thanksgiving. I'm grateful for my new job and new direction that God is going to use me and who he's using me with. That was my Thanksgiving. I like to make predictions, and you never do. I don't know that I won't make any predictions because I just don't know. If I had to, I'd say Trump's got the best road, but that could all change. Biden's got the toughest road, but that could all change. I have a hope. There is something about after 2016, Hillary, and then Trump shocks the world. 2020, everybody assumes Trump, but he made a big mistake with COVID. And then we go into that in those same swing states that he never could carry, that he won by 10,000, he then lost by 10,000, and an insurrection and all that other nonsense.
Oh, let's not leave Stacey Abrams out of the
not leave, and then the shenanigans.
$150 million in Georgia,
In Georgia to steal the Senate. What could 24 have for us? And this is my hope. And it's kind of like navigating a ship perfectly through very shallow waters. If this, with third and fourth and fifth parties, creates a situation where neither major party can secure 270, I say, thank you, Lord. And if it means that House that everybody refuses to focus on will be forced to focus on because they're going to pick the next president. The Senate's going to pick the next vice president. All the better if one's Republican, one's Democrat, and all the better if they go on to be the greatest, most influential presidency and maybe for the first time America can have a glimpse of a republic minus a stranglehold from two parties that rarely, I might add, ever represent or ever live what they believe.
I like your Thanksgiving ending better than mine.
I had a great Thanksgiving.
The conversations are just getting started. To get connected, check out 1850mainstreet.com. We don't data mine anyone or sell your information. Subscribe today so you don't miss a single conversation. We'll see you next time here at 1850 Main Street.